With literally one fader, we've completely changed our drum sound. Hey everybody, welcome back to the studio. I hope you're all doing well. This is my first official video with the new setup, and I'm loving it. For the first time ever, I actually have things exactly where I want them. I've been doing a lot of mixing in the last week, and I want to cover a couple ways that I've been using guitar pedals to help enhance my drum sounds. Today, specifically, going to talk overdrive pedals, because it's something I do a lot. I think I'll do a series of these videos actually, just showing some different ways that I use guitar pedals when mixing, including how I set up the radial ecstasy to work with my setup here, and some ways that you could use it in your setup. Today, let's talk overdrive pedals. You can use these for full-on crunch. You can create a whole entirely new sound with them, and that's cool. That is a way I use them. But one of the ways that I use them the most, or probably the way that I use them the most, is to add some size and depth to a sound, and or to add some character or texture, or make a sound that may be good but uninteresting, interesting. And that's where we're at with this session today. The session I'm using is from a long time ago, actually before this studio was built. We had a small space, it was like 13 by 15 with 13-foot ceilings. We got good drum sounds in there. They were just clean drum tones. They were a sound. Like in this one we're gonna hear, it doesn't quite fit what I have with the bass and the guitar track. So we're gonna try to add a little bit of something to our drum sound to see if we can get them to fit this a little bit better. So let's take a listen to what that sound is. So here's just the drums. Let me kill the guitar and bass so you can hear what we're dealing with. So it's just a drum sound, and it's obviously been recorded in a small room, which nothing wrong with that. But when you hear the bass and guitar, the drum sounds small by comparison, and it doesn't really add any character to the whole track, not just the drum sounds, but the whole track. So what I'm gonna do is use an overdrive pedal. I've got the OCD and the Electro-Harmonix OD Glove. These are my go-to pedals for overdrive and for creating this sort of sound. There's a couple different ways I may do this. I may take it drum by drum, dial in something for the kick, print it into the session, dial something in for the snare, print it into the session. Sometimes even the individual toms and print in. Then I can further process or just have a bit control over automation or that sort of thing. In this case, and this is something I was doing over the weekend on a mix, I'm running the kick and snare at the same time to the OCD. It kind of creates a different sort of chaos when both sounds are going there, but I am pushing the drive enough, which you're gonna hear in a second, that even the snare mic is picking up some of the kick and the kick is picking up some of the snare. But it kind of adds to the flavor. So let's just have a listen to just the OCD. I'm only sending kick and snare. That's all I'm sending. But it sounds like the entire kit is going to the OCD, which you'll hear once I pull it in context that those toms that are coming through there, it actually helps add some depth with those as well, and I haven't really done anything to them. So let's hear our drum sound, our normal drum sound again, and then I'll kick the OCD on after a few bars. Even it sounds like we're processing the toms too, and we haven't done a thing to them. They're just the highly edited toms I can see from my old session. But we have character now. It sounds like a lot when the drums are soloed. And it may be too much, we'll have to see. And this is kind of something that if you do this kind of thing, you have to decide how much to use. Sometimes you may only need a little bit and it adds the size and the texture you need, or sometimes you may want to drive it a little bit harder to add even more character that's a bit more audible. So let's pull it in with the track. I'm gonna mute the OCD. Oh, now it's a bit more interesting. The drums have some attitude, which they didn't have at all before, which I kind of like, actually. It helps quite a bit. Now I'm going to pull it back just a little, and let's just see if we just sneak it in what it does. That leaves the drums a bit more natural, but still gives some character. Now let's push it the other direction. For me, that's a little, if I was using this for real in the song, that'd be a little bit too much. But if you print this back into your session, you could automate this stuff up and down, or even turn it on and off. You might want spots where it's just barely there, and you might want to juice it somewhere, maybe on a transition or a chorus or something like that. With literally one fader, we've completely changed our drum sound in a much more interesting way, I think. So there's one other thing in this session that I like to go over, and that's the room mics. Here is what the room sounded like at the old studio. Nothing exciting at all. Let's hear it with the drum sound. So I'm gonna turn the OCD off. So here's just our plain Jane drum sound. The room doesn't really add anything. There's no size to it. You know, I guess a little bit of stereo width maybe, but they're not even imaged all that well, which usually doesn't bother me because once you crush the crap out of them with compression, it just gets all chaotic anyway and just adds to the overall experience. But in this case, pretty underwhelming. So what I did is I printed them back through the OD glove. And here is, let me mute the old room. Here's what that sounds like. Now let's hear what that sounds like with the drum. So still no OCD on the main drum sound. Definitely not a traditional drum sound, but at least we're getting something that has some character, something interesting to listen to. Now I took the rooms one step further and I added two things. The Trident filtration, which has some killer saturation on its own, but these filters are awesome. And I'm just rolling off some, I don't know, it's probably around, where is it, about 11K, just to get a little, some of the harshness up at the top away. And I probably could have gone lower, but I kind of liked it in context. And then I'm adding a CLA 76. I'm getting some gain from this too. got some rumble. You kind of hear the back and forth of the room. Let's hear what that adds to our plain Jane drum sound. All right, got something at least that's got some uniqueness to it. Now let's add all the processing to the drums, the OCD on the kick and snare, and our new highly processed overdriven rooms. Traditional room sound? Hell no. But we've taken a very unremarkable drum sound and given it some character. And that was part of the goal of this. It doesn't always have to be nice sounding. It can be quite boring, actually. All right, let's pull guitar and bass back in. I'm gonna turn the OCD off and I'm gonna turn our rooms off. And let's hear what happens when I kick all that stuff in. There we go. We went from a pretty boring drum sound to something with some character, considerable more attitude, and in my opinion, much more interesting. This is one way that I use overdrive pedals all the time on my mixes. I think the bottom line is be creative with this. Don't be afraid to try something else. You know, if you're a guitar player, you probably already have a lot of pedals. If you're not a guitar player, I guarantee you know one. Call them up and see if you can borrow the pedals and have a little bit of fun. That's it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed this and happy recording. See you next time.